I think home is really special. When I think of home, I think of security. I think of somewhere that's safe, somewhere that's yours, and somewhere that just feels right.
I think it's challenging because people don't have that ability to have that home or to have that space. It's very stressful for them. And it's hard to function in society if you don't have a home. It's hard to work, it's hard to go to school, it's hard to take care of a family if you don't have a home. And I truly believe everyone deserves to have a home.
In the early days, the trust fund was created along with the NFC, the Neighborhood Finance Corporation, out of the Stockard and Engler report that the city commissioned. And that report called for the city and or the county to create both a lending entity, which is what NFC turned into, and then the trust fund was the gap funding mechanism. And then the third part of it would have been the commercial development division, which is now turned into NDC, or Neighborhood Development Corp. I mean, it was really a group team effort across both the public and private sector, as well as, a lot of different corporations in town got involved.
It started out pretty much just in Des Moines, and now we've obviously grown through the region, which I think is important. Affordable housing and workforce housing should be everywhere in Polk County, and that's really what we thrive for. Now we get money not only through Polk County, but we get money through the state, which is phenomenal. That took a lot of work and a lot of effort from a lot of people, and that just didn't happen overnight. We worked on that for many years, and in the last few years, we finally are getting money. They have an actual state housing trust fund, so we get some of those dollars. So that's really important. We've grown through the community, business community, and through just the general community. So it's really helpful that we're not just focusing on in the city of Des Moines, but through our region when we help with workforce housing and affordable housing.
The policies in general around building have made it harder for the average worker to be able to find a place that they can afford to live. And when you think about the greater Des Moines metro area, you have probably 20% of the population that is either going to have to room up or live with someone else or be subsidized in their housing. You got about 40% of the population that can't participate in the market today the way it is on there. And then you've got probably another 10% is kind of on the gray of if they find the exact right product, they could participate in the market. And then you have the rest that can actually maybe afford. So you're only talking about 30% of the population that can afford to participate in the active market around housing.
We have to have more housing. We have to have more housing, and it has to be affordable. We would always love for there to be more services and more funding, but without the addition of affordable housing, it will continue to be so challenging to get people housed and to keep them housed because there just aren't that many units available. And it really takes It takes everybody to be a part of the solution. It can't just be the providers in the homeless crisis response system. It is every person in the community providing support in some way or another. And that support can be dollars, but it can also be supportive conversations in rooms that we will never be in ourselves. And so I think that's just an ongoing challenge for us to make sure that all of the residents of Des Moines have housing.
I think that there is still work to be done when it comes to education on the disparities that are there. I think that we have some policymakers that have made it their mission to know what's going on, and there are some that still see it, some initiatives and programs, as a handout, and that's unfortunate, right? Because it's not a handout, it's a right. People should know the steps they need to build wealth within their families. It shouldn't be a secret. It shouldn't be a minefield to try to maneuver through. It should be something that is taught, because if we are able to help our minority population or our low income families progress, then we will progress together. And that shift in mindset will also allow us to be more collaborative across the table and provide real initiatives and real programming that will allow for real change. We have the our One Economy report, we have the Nuestro report, we have the Central Iowa Equity Dashboard. Those are resources that are there, but we may need to be more loud and proud about the work that's been done. With the help of Polk County Housing Trust Fund, have been a part of all of these different projects, but now we have to make sure that our policymakers are actually reading this report for clarity and to drive some of their decisions, and that we're not looking at everything through, a corporate lens, or where are we making those changes holistically, I should say.
A call to action for the projects that we do is trying to simultaneously respond to large-scale challenges of our time. The first being the global and growing need for additional affordable housing, and the second is responding to climate change.
Rising construction costs and interest rates and all these pressures on projects has caused developers to need to get very creative in finding funding sources, and it's led to unique and really special, we think, partnerships with nonprofits and with city governments to help forge a path through these increased costs and actually getting to a project that'll pencil. Polk County Housing Trust Fund, of course, has been really great to work with these past few years, well, for a long time, but especially these past few years as a kind of a known advocate for this housing in the face of all these pressures to slow down development from increased costs and interest rate. The fact that Polk County Housing Trust Fund was selected as the administrator of ARPA funding, I think says a lot to the organization, and knowing that those dollars will be very well distributed and distributed to folks that will get the projects done and provide that housing.
The thing I love about housing trust funds is the nimbleness of you to meet actually the needs in the community. But the other thing I really admire about the Polk County Housing Trust Fund is your strategic visioning. So you work a strategy, you work the plan, and you're great with partnerships. And we really value the partnership that we have at the Iowa Finance Authority with the Polk County Housing Trust Fund. Collaboration is really what it's all about. And as I stated, the nimbleness of the Housing Trust Fund to be able to really localize and meet the needs that they have on the ground, because what we provide is really more long-term continuum of housing, and the trust fund's able to come in and really complement that, and they're able to meet that in that emergency situation that's going on. So I think that that is the value of housing trust funds. It's why really the Iowa Finance Authority, led the initiative a few years ago in partnership with the Polk County Housing Trust Fund of getting more resources for the local trust funds. We need about 24,000 housing units by the year 2030. And the only way we're going to do that is to do through innovation, technology, and partnerships.
Their support has not only allowed us to improve our existing programming, but also allowed us to implement new ways and creative ways of helping others, like bringing new staff members with diverse backgrounds or bilingual caseworkers to assist and meet the needs of our newly arrived communities. And also that funds actually allowed us to broaden our reach and to be more creative. It's just amazing to see they're driving. Some of them never actually had a car before, so they learn to drive and they get the licenses and you can see the smiles on their faces and when you talk to a native born American about these things, they feel like this is ABC of life, but for them it's like cornerstones. This is hard stuff because they don't know the language. Getting your permit, getting your license, getting your first job, working in an environment that you never actually worked in before. And now you're learning English, you're learning the culture and navigating all of that, seeing them actually breaking barriers and working hard toward their goals that they set for them for their lives, and all of that is just amazing to see, and how people can do when there is opportunities for them and when there is support in place for them.
The Polk County Housing Trust Fund will be celebrating 30 years in 2025 on May 30th, in which we are so excited about. We have a pretty fresh team that is full of energy and excitement and optimism and innovative energy that's going to propel us even further than what we were able to achieve in these last 30 years. And so we're really looking forward to what the next 30 years look like for us, which could entail larger partnerships, larger investments in community initiatives. When you have a sense of ownership of something that is yours, there's a larger sense of pride, freedom, and then comfortability. And so being able to help families on that journey is just so powerful. No matter the stage or phase that they're at, being able to help them improve at least one step is something that we can cherish and celebrate.